You're lying in a rice paddy chest deep in lukewarm water, somewhere south of Da Nang in late 1968. It's after midnight. The sky is overcast, no moon, no stars, just a low, heavy darkness pressing down on you. Your helmet barely clears the water. Your rifle is balanced across a dike. Mosquitoes cover your hands and neck like a second skin, but you're not allowed to swat them. You can't light a cigarette. You can't even use insect repellent. The enemy can't see you, hear you, or smell you. Somewhere behind you, a rural hamlet sleeps, families, kids, old people. Your little squad of Marines and popular forces is the only thing between them and whatever might slip out of the tree line. Then you hear it. One soft splash, then another. A figure moving along the dike toward you, close enough that you can hear his breathing. You raise your weapon, finger tightening on the trigger. Is it a farmer coming back late? A Viet Cong courier? Or the start of an attack? For a few seconds that feel like an hour, the entire war shrinks to one question. Do you fire or do you wait? If you ask many veterans what scared them most in Vietnam, they won't always say big battles like Ia Drang or Hue. They'll say the nights. What most people don't realize is that for infantry units, especially in 1967 to 1969, the war after dark was often a chain of night ambushes, listening posts, and perimeter patrols. Small groups of men pushed out into the dark, sometimes only 50 to 200 meters from friendly lines, told to observe and engage anything that moved. U.S. doctrine on night jungle operations emphasized aggressive patrolling, and units from the 25th Infantry Division near Siu Chi, the 9th Infantry Division in the Mekong Delta, and Marine Combined Action platoons around Anong all ran frequent night patrols as a matter of routine. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Most of those patrols didn't end in dramatic firefights. They ended in nothing, hours of sweat, silence, and fear. But every rustle of brush, every distant dog bark, every firefly that looked like a tracer round kept men one bad decision away from killing a civilian, a comrade, or themselves. Tonight, you're going to move through some of the most terrifying types of night patrols U.S. soldiers and Marines experienced, one continuous tour through the dark side of this war. You stay where you are in that paddy, part of a combined action platoon, maybe 13 Marines and a Navy corpsman working with a local militia platoon in a cluster of hamlets south of Da Nang. The Combined Action Program, active from 1965 to 1971, embedded small Marine units into villages to provide 24-hour security and constant day and night patrols. The environment at night is brutal. The water is warm but sticky. Leeches find their way under your sleeves. Your flak jacket and web gear weigh 30 to 40 pounds and drag you down. There's a faint smell of mud, fish, and human waste. You're not in a fortified base. There's no wire, no towers, no floodlights. Just you, a few Marines, some Vietnamese militia, and a village behind you that trusts you to keep death out. A veteran who patrolled villages like this recalled nights lying in flooded paddies, ordered not to move, not to swat mosquitoes, not to talk above a whisper. One night, a man walked straight into their hidden position in the dark. When they popped a flare, he bolted, gone in seconds. They never knew if he was Viet Cong looking for food or a local sympathizer sneaking out to deliver it. And this detail changes how you see the entire war. In these villages, your mission isn't search and destroy. It's to catch infiltrators without turning the hamlet into a battlefield. Every decision carries moral weight. You're supposed to protect the villagers, not blow apart their homes because you spooked at a shadow. Psychologically, nights like this eat at you. You start hearing things that aren't there. You imagine people stalking you through the crops. You know that if you fire too late, your squad might die. If you fire too early, you might kill a farmer or an ARVN soldier home on leave. As one Marine discovered at dawn, realizing he'd spent the night inches from a friendly soldier he nearly shot. After enough of these nights, you learn the first rule of Vietnam after dark. You can be invisible and still completely exposed. And once you've guarded villages from the shadows, the next step is even worse, leaving the village entirely. A few months later, you're with the U.S. Army's 25th Infantry Division in Tây Ninh Province during the winter of 1967 to 1968. Operation Saratoga is pushing units of the 2nd Brigade across Hao Nia and Tây Ninh. In every firebase they carve out of the scrub needs eyes in front of the wire at night. Tonight, you draw one of the most hated assignments in Vietnam, the listening post. Your 4-man team from Delta Company, 4th Battalion, 9th Infantry, Manchus, moves out from the base at Bo Tuc just after dark on December 18, 1967. You walk, maybe 300 to 400 meters into the tree line, then stop at a shallow depression, a dried-up water hole about 2 feet deep and 8 feet across. This is home until dawn. You emplace a couple of claymore mines, point them toward a clearing about 40 meters wide, and settle down in the hot, still air. A 9th Infantry Regiment veteran, Bill Kelly, remembered exactly this night. He wrote that they'd already taken incoming grenades earlier that day, and even headquarters had doubted whether to send LPs out at all. But orders were orders. Hours pass. Nobody sleeps. Then, sometime after midnight, the quiet shatters. He heard what sounded like dozens of mortar tubes firing, 50 to 80 by his estimate, and then saw movement at the far tree line. As his eyes adjusted, he realized a full enemy force, roughly 75 to 100 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, was walking right across his field of fire, completely unaware that 4 Americans were hiding in the shadows between them and a base. The tactical job of an LP is simple and horrifying. You don't open fire unless they're on top of you. Your real weapon is the radio. Kelly whispered back to the command post, walked artillery rounds closer and closer, dropped 100 meters, dropped 50, until friendly shells were exploding almost on top of his position. Then came gunships, then jets dropping napalm, turning night into day. He and his men blew their claymores, but still held fire, letting steel and firepower do the killing around them. Psychologically, this is a different terror than village patrols. You're not just afraid of the enemy, you're afraid of your own side's firepower landing short. You're pinned between a battalion of attackers and a wall of artillery you personally called in. By dawn, Kelly's LP was somehow still alive. The field around them was cratered, bodies everywhere, a scene he later called one of the worst battles his unit ever fought. Once you've learned what it feels like to guide death in from miles away, the next lesson comes when the enemy stops marching toward you in big groups and starts slipping through your defenses instead. Fast forward to late January 1968. You've been reassigned north into I Corps, attached to Marine units around Da Nang. Rumors are swirling. Intelligence reports mention increased enemy movement, fewer booby traps, more sightings of reconnaissance teams near key bases like Hill 10 and the Tien Sha Peninsula. Marine histories describe officers being briefed that they are finally going to come out and fight. Your job tonight is perimeter patrol, walking the wire outside a major installation, maybe a communication site or airbase. There are trip flares, claymores, tanglefoot wire, and roving Marine and ARVN patrols circling the position. On paper, it's secure. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. The real threat isn't a human wave attack. It's sappers, highly trained VC and NVA commandos who specialize in cutting fences, crawling under concertina wire, and blowing up ammo dumps or command posts from the inside. In the early hours of the Tet Offensive, at places like Da Nang and Saigon, sapper teams infiltrated multiple bases almost simultaneously, often timing their attacks for around 1:30 to 2 o'clock to catch defenders at their lowest alert. Out on the perimeter, you move in a slow, tense rhythm. Walk 5 steps, stop and listen. Your boots crunch lightly on gravel. There's the smell of diesel from parked vehicles, cordite from the day's artillery, maybe the faint scent of the South China Sea if you're near the coast. Every now and then, a parachute flare pops over the horizon, turning the landscape black and white for a few seconds before it dies, plunging you back into darkness. Marine after-action reports from around Da Nang describe sappers cutting through multiple layers of wire, using Bangalore torpedoes, satchel charges, and even ladders to get over embankments. At one compound south of Marble Mountain, a sapper team hit a Special Forces and SOG headquarters, killing 17 Americans and wounding more than 100 in a matter of minutes. You know these stories. You've seen the bodies from previous attempts. So when you hear a faint metallic snick in the wire, your heart rate jumps. Is it a loose strand in the wind, or a man with wire cutters 30 meters away? Tactically, perimeter patrols during Tet forced units to change behavior. Floodlights went up, reaction forces stayed dressed and armed around the clock, and patrol leaders adjusted sectors of fire to avoid shooting into each other under sudden attack. But the psychological cost was high. Sleep became a luxury, and every shadow at 2 a.m. looked like a sapper with a satchel charge. After you spent nights expecting the enemy to crawl under your wire, you discover there's one place even more unnerving to patrol in the dark. Not jungle, not paddies, not base perimeters, but black water. Late in your tour, you find yourself riding with a small Army advisory team aboard a Navy patrol boat, River, one of the 31-foot PBRs that roamed the Mekong Delta as part of Task Force 116's Operation Game Warden. At the peak of the war, the Navy deployed around 140 PBRs to Vietnam, patrolling roughly 3,000 nautical miles of waterways. Two-boat teams set up at night along canals and rivers, checking sampans, enforcing curfews, and ambushing enemy movement. At night, the river feels like another planet. The boat's engines idle low. The air is thick with humidity and diesel exhaust. Mangrove roots claw out of the water along the banks. You can't see the shore, just a darker line of black within the black. Every splash could be a fish or a swimmer with explosives. What most people don't realize is that these PBR ambushes often worked exactly like infantry night ambushes ashore. You drift into position, kill the engines, and wait. In operations like Coronado 11 in early 1968, riverine infantry and boat crews fought repeated engagements in district around Kando, sometimes taking fire from bunkers hidden just a few yards inland. On August 27, 1969, for example, a PBR working with the 1st Infantry Division ambushed a 15-20-man PVN/VC unit trying to cross the Saigon River around 1:35. Flares, helicopter gunships, and even an AC-47 gunship joined in, killing about 15 of the enemy. A few months later, during Operation Tone Tang 4, another PBR on the Saigon River engaged a crossing at 1915, killing 27 PVN/VC with the help of gunships. Now imagine you're on that patrol. The boat commander whispers orders. The gunner behind you has his twin .50 calories trained on a narrow gap between trees. Somewhere upriver, you hear the faint scrape of a wooden hull. You feel the river current tugging you sideways. Your world has shrunk to one invisible shape in the dark. When contact comes, it's instantaneous. A burst of automatic fire from the bank, green tracers ripping across the water, your .50s roaring back, muzzle flashes lighting up palm trunks and thatch huts for a heartbeat at a time. The river explodes with light, noise, and splinters, and then just as quickly, you're back in the dark, ears ringing, trying to figure out if anyone on your boat was hit. Tactically, these night ambushes strangled enemy logistics along the waterways. Strategically, they show that in Vietnam, even the rivers were contested ground. But for the men on those boats, and for riders like you, it meant one more place where the darkness never felt safe. By the time your tour is winding down, night no longer feels like half the day. It feels like its own war. You've lain in rice paddies protecting villages that never knew how close they came to disaster. You've sat in listening posts where 4 men stared down a battalion and survived only because artillery landed close enough to kill them too. You've walked perimeters during Tet, listening for the tiny sounds of wire being cut while knowing that somewhere out there, sappers are watching you back. And you felt the particular terror of black water, where the enemy can be a single muzzle flash on a riverbank. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Statistically, many of those nights passed without a single shot fired. But the mind doesn't care about statistics. It remembers the few nights when everything went wrong, or almost did, and then it relives those possibilities every time the sun goes down. Historically, night patrols forced both sides to adapt. U.S. units refined doctrines for night jungle operations, improved trip flares and sensors, integrated artillery and air power into quick reaction plans, and developed riverine tactics that shaped later conflicts. Psychologically, though, the cost lasted far beyond the war. Many veterans who serve in units like the 25th Infantry Division, the 9th Infantry Division's Riverine Brigades, or Marine Combined Action Platoons talk about how decades later, they still wake at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, heart racing, listening for sounds that aren't there. In daylight, Vietnam was dangerous. At night, for the soldiers and Marines on patrol, it was something worse. A place where every sense was turned up to maximum, where a single mistake in the dark could erase a life in an instant, and where survival depended on learning to live with a fear you never fully escaped.